Hey everyone, Douglas here, and welcome back to the MMT Macro Trader live stream. Hello everyone, thanks for showing up tonight. It's Wednesday night, your favorite spot to be Wednesday night. Welcome. How you doing, Bijou?
Hey man, good, thank you. Thanks and welcome. How's it going?
It's going, man. It's going. Excited for another great live stream. Last week's was so much fun. We went completely off the rails by the second hour, but it was a lot of fun. And
Completely relative to what other podcasts? Relative to a Zoom room.
Yeah.
Business chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly how things play out in the business world. Anyway, howdy everyone. If you're just tuning in, welcome. Say hi in the chat. Let us know that you're there. And as always, throughout the live stream, ask any questions you might have. Interact with us.
Yeah.
And we can have another hopefully fun night. Right now, my stream is saying no data is being received, and hopefully that's lying to me. Okay, now it's back to saying Josh is in the chat. We're clearly. I was
going to close my door.
Yeah, we're clearly rolling. Welcome, Josh. Tonight we're gonna kick things off. Oh, actually, Bijou stepped away, so I can't tell you how we're gonna kick things off because he doesn't know how we're gonna kick things off. But now I'm here in Bijou. Back. What's up, Cybernetics? Welcome, man. Welcome. How you guys been, by the way? You know what? Actually, before I tell you what I intend on doing tonight, let me ask you guys this: what's on your mind tonight, chat? What is of interest to you in terms of topics that we could wander towards by the live streams, and let us know.
Do you call fizzy drinks soda or fizzy drinks?
I'm from in Michigan. We call it pop.
Oh, pop. Okay.
Yeah. I think we're unique in America for that. I think most Americans call it soda.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Is it advisable to drink soda or pop before a live stream?
No, water only.
Oh, okay.
Water.
Well, we might find out tonight anyway.
Everything here is Coke. Are you Cybernetics? Are you from the South? I know in the South, Coke is popular.
I did sort of come across that a little bit. That did confuse me for a while. People at the barbecues were saying it was Coke. This is when I was in the States.
Yeah, and you went to college in the South, right?
Yeah.
Florida.
Florida. And Louisiana.
Yeah, that's exactly where they'd call it Coke, from my understanding. Our Canadian friends, if you guys are in the house, you guys might call it soda too. I think they call it, or pop. I mean, you guys might call it pop in this neck of the woods.
Like UF, they just called everything Gatorade, didn't they? I know.
In Florida, probably. Yeah. So, Josh, we can definitely talk AI. I have been having the speed of AI is amazing. Two, I've been having a blast with all things AI. I finally paid my $20 to Chat GPT to get on GPT-4, and I have had. It's been doing things that 3.5 just couldn't pull off, and it's pretty amazing. Wow. It's pretty amazing. I'll tell you what, the creepiest experience that I have with AI is when it apologizes to you. It made some mistakes, and I'm like, hey, I think, well, what it did, this is the weirdest thing, is it gave me a variable in my code, and it's like, hey, you need the unique number. The variable is called unique number. Yeah. And it said, how did it go? Yeah, the variable was unique number, and it's like, hey, you need unique number in your model. And I type back, and I'm like, I don't think I've made unique number as a variable anymore. And it's like, oh yeah, sorry about that. It was an oversight. Good catch. And the way it had personality, I'm like, that is, I don't know. It was creepy. Yeah, it was creepy.
Is that the uncanny valley, but in code?
Yeah. Let's see. The other thing, what else? Oh yeah, and then Copilot X is coming out later this year. And again, let's just take my money. But one of the things that Copilot X has, and this is just going to be fascinating because this is, I mean, everyone's so geeked out about ChatGPT and it's great, but I think that the next generation of AI, generative AI, or these large language model AI models is really going to be a more interactive version, right? And it's going to be voice. And so Copilot X or Copilot, I mean, if you were aware, you knew what ChatGPT was about to be. If you were using Copilot a year ago when it first came out, it seems to be a bit of the testing ground for where ChatGPT heads. But Copilot X is going to do two things that are going to be absolutely groundbreaking. One of them you're going to absolutely love because it's going to increase the adoption of Linux with exponential speed. But the first thing it's going to do is voice to AI prompt, essentially, right? So from the looks of it, you're hacking away on code, and you can tell Copilot X, hey, while I'm working on this, can you start making some function to do whatever, right? You can just speak that out, and it can start preparing some function for you when you're ready for it, stuff like that, or just ask it simple questions that it can get prepared prepare for you. So that's going to be awesome. But what's also sweet is Copilot is going to have full integration with terminals and will have any terminal code you need for Linux or whatever, terminal lines. Set right for you, which is really the reason why I continue to just do everything in Windows, because I don't have the slightest clue what I'm entering into the terminal. I can Google it until until the cows come home, but it's such a it's just such a long process to learn, and $10 a month to get Copilot to do it, and that's what to say. It seems to be tremendous benefits for Linux, but the barrier to entry is still a bit steep in my opinion. So anyway, those are my thoughts for tonight on AI, which to me is still the most exciting topic out there. But that's it.
Oh wow, that's those are some thoughts. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I've got do I give up just doing it all myself and just pay that? Oh man, decisions I'm gonna have to face probably soon. I don't know. Although, I'm not exactly a professional programmer, so I'm only doing my science stuff at the moment and the stuff that Dugbot. I can imagine, professional coding. It's like having a whole little army with you to help you. It's like,
you got to give it a shot.
What about research? So I've always been more on the research side, so doing things that no one's done before. And the thing with that is that most people might, I don't know most people, but I guess some people have a stereotype of the typical scientist who's this creative person who's coming up with these new theories and testing them. But the fact is, most research is just doing things that you've already done before. It's just checking things out. You do have to come up with a hypothesis. Yeah. But you see, imagine your Chat GPT 5 or something comes up with a hypothesis for you
to test out. Yeah.
Then the Chat GPT 4 No, I mean that's the sort of area that'd be even more spooky to me, because mimicking humans, the Turing mimic game or Turing test is it's a challenge. It's a coding challenge, but it's just a technical challenge. And so you can, Eliza, the really ancient chat, the first one of the first chatbots was fooling people, and it was spooky, and that was back in the 70s. So it's easy to spook people with the uncanny valley stuff and all of that, and it's just I see the benefit of it is maybe bringing it to the masses or something, or lowering the costs and the barrier to entry of people who can actually use it sort of every day without burning up all the servers and wasting all of electricity on stupid stuff. So that's a bit of a regulatory minefield there coming up, I reckon. Could be potentially, because it could be too useful for its own good in a sense.
Josh, what was who signed the letter that you were talking about just out of curiosity. I'm curious if I can find that letter that you were talking about. But yeah, keep going, Bijou. I think you're on a point with the
what letter to? Yeah, I'm not sure what
Josh said he recently saw a bunch of tech guys sign a letter denouncing the speed of AI adoption.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting if you could find the link to that, Josh.
Yeah.
I've read bits and pieces about that too. Yeah, there are definitely people who are big research people, universities and elsewhere, maybe some of the other private research facilities that are worrying about that stuff. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's good to worry about. That's a human problem to worry about for sure. Don't know if you can quite ask ChatGPT yet. Is it good regulatory policy to limit access to you? So yeah, but for research, I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see if it's capable of coming up with some sort of creative hypotheses, and so making it making research a whole lot smoother and faster could be really interesting.
It is.
Well, it's not.
For my 9 to 5, that's where it's paying off. And right. One of the things that ChatGPT-4 was able to do, some of the data I work with in my day-to-day stuff, it's really complex data, high dimensional data, and 3.5 couldn't handle the dimension of it. Right? It just I would explain what I needed, and it didn't know how to rearrange the data. ChatGPT-4 understood it right away. I mean, it understood what I needed, why I needed it, how I needed it, and explained everything along the way.
It's still mimicking understanding, but it has all the background. It has all the background necessary to mimic understanding.
Here's what Bijou doesn't understand. We're just mimicking understanding as well.
No.
I know.
Qualia. So I know. You can't make the case, but it's as a practical user, all you need is a mimic of understanding. That's what I'd be saying. So it's going to be interesting though, where it does break. So you could imagine chat or just GPT, whatever, 10, 12, 22, whatever. They're not going to be able to go like continual improvement, like
Correct.
Kind of a Moore's law for intelligence, because really there isn't that much thing. It not for the AI anyway. It's always leveraging on past human knowledge, and the whole singularity idea is then becomes the interesting thing. Is it going to be truly generative of new ideas? That's what I'm thinking about the research, because if you can get one that is pretty good at research and can come up with hypotheses to test.
Yeah, that'll be
then you're more at the AI singularity folks level, because then it's able to come up with hypotheses maybe about itself or about AI systems, and then it can improve itself.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if our chat's into that side of things, but I guess that the folks like Hamel and those who are interested in computer science and AI would be interested in that sort of idea, that the Singularity Institute people figure that the AI is going to be soon self-improving, and so it's just going to make leaps and advances. But it's like wild. I still think that's going to just be total fantasy. They're thinking of intelligence, or what I call understanding, which is subjective conscious awareness, not just ability to mimic. They're thinking of it in a kind of a Moore's law type terms. You throw more stuff at it. You can plot a graph or something maybe of well, actually, this is a quite interesting question. Like, how do you assess the rate of improvement of the GPTs or the related tech?
Sam Altman was on the Lex Friedman podcast this weekend, and that was one of the discussions they had briefly. Is just the various metrics they've had to measure the progress, and it doesn't. I mean, there's not an answer. Yeah, right. There's not an answer. There's not an. I mean,
intelligence is a multifaceted thing. You can do it in one area.
Yep.
But overall, general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, doesn't have a proper metric. But supposing it did, and supposing it was going up linearly, or something, even a Moore's law type curve, it's gonna. I think it's gonna have to level off at some stage, just because it's not subjective conscious awareness thinking, that kind of dreaming kind of thing. You could mimic that, just sticking some random number generators in the right place, but that's not just sticking a random number generator in the right place isn't the actual process of thought. It's a mimic of thought. It's a mechanical version of it, and it's like there's no proof, or there's not even any theory of how that can just endlessly scale up and give you an AI singularity, which will solve all problems in the world. At least all physical problems that can be computed. It can solve all computable problems, which leaves humans, around to do all the non-computable problems and weird shit, which would be quite amazing. But
we'll be left around. Utopia. We'll be left around to make the problems.
Yeah, we'll come up with all sorts of ways to make problems and mess around with things. So, whoops! I just created a climate catastrophe.
Can you solve this for me?
These are the things that the singularity people I don't think really are sensibly thinking about. But those other leaders, it's good. It's good that they're writing that stuff. But there's like so many of these issues, because some of them, like Musk and Wozniak, and they're thinking about the singularity threat, which I don't think is a threat at all. I reckon it's a productivity gain story, not an unemployment story, as we say. But but the other regulatory issues to make use of AI fair, because if you're going to be honest about it, it's all been generated one way or another with government subsidies and tax breaks, so it belongs to everyone, right? It's like there's no reason that you have to be paying $10 a month for it, because it's already been paid for. Well, so all they're doing is charging rents, and what you'd be paying for maybe is research or something to go into improving it. But
it seems like Sam Altman has especially for kind of the San Francisco tech guys. Although he's a UBI guy, but he's a UBI guy for kind of the wrong reasons.
Right.
But I do think there's a case to be made that $10 a month seems reasonable. With that being said, it is just a massive ripoff of all of GitHub. Anyway,
well, exactly. It's leveraging
all the knowledge of everyone else.
Centuries of all the givers, and then we're going to make a profit out of it.
Yeah, hopefully we can get it to become a public utility soon.
Public utility is going to be the way to go. some sort of just credit. So it's not a UBI, but it's like you've heard of Steve Keen's carbon credits and that. Universal carbon credits.
Yeah,
that's the way to go. I think that's the future. Not freaking UBI. So you have a job guarantee. You have people doing what they enjoy, as long as it fits a public purpose. But for like goods that can be like cheaply produced, like code or books or you name it, anything sort of digital, and anything very absolutely essential, like maybe certain basic foods, certain electricity, water, that sort of thing, maybe hopefully housing in the future, you can have just credits for. So you can spend up to your credits allotted. It's like a war rationing system, which let's face it, if the climate threat is real, and not everyone thinks it is, but I think you and I do. So let's just say, for the purposes of argument, it's real. Then you're going to have to ration things. It's like a war against ourselves, our own destruction of the environment. So so rationing works in wars, and you have credits, and so everyone gets sort of the same amount, not based on how rich they are or anything. And so you can do that with things like, local councillors here in New Zealand are talking about maybe doing that with some
interesting
aspects with water. And water is plentiful in New Zealand, so we're actually thinking about that. So that's pretty amazing. Just basic sort of social justice sort of things that are very sort of elemental, necessary for human survival. Take that off people as a worry in life, and then all the other sort of fun stuff that you want to do is just regulated by other laws. But you can have sort of universal credits for for the basic needs. And I reckon, access to some of this high powered computing is going to have to be throttled, regulated, because otherwise it's going to, the server farms are going to multiply. Yeah,
it will be a fun future to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be lots for regulators to do. So hey, it's not just AI nerds are going to have fun out of this.
Yeah.
Regulatory folks are going to have a lot of Zoom room conferences.
Well, the good thing is we know, especially based on now we're 3 weeks out from SVB blowing up, is that regulators are really good at doing their job. They're always ahead of the curve when it comes to the regulatory decisions they need to make. And I'm sure we're
just sign a few things and go to lunch.
We're going to be in good hands, in the hands of the regulators, because
So there's no scope there for education of good regulators. That's the point. I mean, it's right. It's so bad at doing regulation. It takes so long that that's not an AI solvable problem. Actually, I think
the regulation,
not Turing computable. Yeah, I don't think it's a computable. I don't think it's in the Turing computable set.
Yeah,
it's a different class of complexity class, I reckon.
There's just it's too late. I mean, it's too late to regulate some of this stuff. I understand they'll put laws on the books and stuff like that, and a lot of the laws would already apply, especially when you get like the image creation and stuff like that, right? I mean, obviously there's room for abuse there, but
it's too late to regulate the release of some of the software.
Yeah,
but it's never too late to regulate, as you know. One of the things that regulators are good at is regulating things that don't need to be regulated.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is,
let's go back in time and stop everyone releasing these AI bots.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. I get what you're saying. They can regulate it, but
they will regulate it.
They will. We've just all already got it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So they're gonna have to like patch it up with sort of
I get
things like fair use stuff. And, that's all good. That's all good if it's done right. And the thing about regulation, I reckon, is that it is a human thing. It's politics, and you don't know you've got it right. You don't, even if you think your regulations are, that you've drafted are good. You don't know you've got it right until it meets the practical reality, and then after that you can adjust it, and it keeps on adjusting because people find out later if it works or it doesn't work. I mean, it's a survivorship, isn't there? So in regulations, the ones that still exist are ones that sort of kind of work or are just totally unnecessary.
but do nothing. But
they're never used, but they're there.
Sit on the books.
Some lawyer comes up and it's like, there's this regulation 24-CB, and it covers this thing. So hey, you better not do that or pay us a fine. Or we have to pay you compensation from the government, and and then it's like, I never knew that existed. Some of these things I think some of these things exist that you could lawyers could have. Well, they do they get paid to do that, don't they? I don't know, I'm just speculating. Anyway, the regulatory minefield, it's one that you have to walk through, and a few people are going to blow up.
All right. Well, viewers are coming in. So, Bijou, I told you before we got going that I was going to tell you when we got going what it is that I plan on covering tonight. I think where I want to go tonight is I want to take a step back and go to kind of the beginning, like just talk basic MMT as it relates to markets and walk through that discussion. I've had some of the data that I'm seeing has been interesting, to say the least, with regards to where I think markets are headed. Banking data is looking a bit soft. If you're a Patreon member, I put out the actually I had a kind of a busy week last week, so had to delay one of the updates. So they were back-to-back updates, I think Sunday, Tuesday, or something like that. Anyway, 2 updates, pretty close, and even in the midst of those updates, we saw some core data change. But with that being said, banking data is looking soft. I mean, I'll say it's looking soft. It's kind of interesting, especially as we're heading into the potential debt ceiling situation, and coming off of just kind of a spooked banking sector. So there's that aspect there. But what I want to do is start at just like the absolute basic and give just kind of the overview of people who want to view the market through the lens of MMT, kind of how, where's the starting point from there, and where should all other thinking derive
Good
from.
idea.
So I thought we could do that tonight, amongst other things. I'm looking at I can see Bijou's screen, and I can see some of the notes that he's brought up. So I'm also looking at Bijou's notes. So it looks like he's got some things to talk about. And again, chat, if you guys have anything that you guys want to discuss, bring it up as well. Let's do this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some of the data that I look at, and I think it'd just be good to set the stage.
Okay. That sounds very reasonable.
All right, I'm going to start off taking a look at the Fred data, my favorite website, the St. Louis Fred. And let's just start with kind of core MMT, and I would consider core MMT, at least when it comes to kind of econometrics, right? I mean, core MMT is, if I were to sum up MMT, in one sentence, it's that the government can spend as much as it wants, whenever it wants. Just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke for the MMT guys out there. That's a joke.
Oh, God. So, yeah. That's a good one to start with.
I mean, I think if I just had one sentence to sum up MMT, it'd try to get across as much as it could. It'd probably be something to the extent of the government is the monopoly issuer of the currency, or something like that. The monopoly price setter of the currency, something like that.
Anything that's for sale, it can buy without causing inflation pressures. You have to have that without causing inflation pressures clause these days.
Yeah.
Earlier in the past, you could be a bit abbreviated without causing inflation pressure, and then not that it should.
Yeah.
Buy everything that is for sale.
Yeah. Not that it should. Yeah, exactly. God, that is yeah. You know what? I went on a rant today. Bijou.
It's on Twitter.
No. I've actually hit pause on Twitter for a little while here. I've been working on a couple projects, you guys. We got some really cool stuff coming out. I got to tell you, Bijou's been working very hard on getting a data dashboard put together. It's looking awesome. That's going to be up soon. I've been pushing in some different directions in terms of some deep learning model stuff. I was playing around with what's called a temporal convolutional network for kind of another idea project that I'm working on. Some bleeding edge stuff. GPT-4 is helping me out tremendously. But I need to stay away from the distraction of Twitter for just a little while I continue to press on some of this stuff. But when I come back, I'm going to come back with a vengeance. We're going to have a lot to share. It's right around the corner. But I keep an eye on Twitter, but I can't engage right now, lest I be distracted. Funny. But we've got some cool stuff coming. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I went on a rant. Today. Not on Twitter. I went on a rant today, and it really bothers me that a specific segment of the voice out there tries to claim that they are the true free market people, right?
Oh, do they? That's true free market. Wow.
Right, and that I mean, there's a few of them. They have the most punchable faces too. I don't know why. I don't know why. There's such
their faces.
What's that?
You see their faces?
Well, yeah, they're on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, they have their little.
They have a little thing.
Not
everyone has their face.
Their little avatar. Okay. Oh, the guy I'm thinking of particularly has the face. No, but they have. There's a couple of angles to this that kind of bother me, and it goes back to the interest rate. The interest rate discussion. Speaking of interest rates, Applied MMT has had some banger tweets out recently, just on and this is kind of where the crux of my issue on just the hypocrisy of, and again, I'm thinking particularly about kind of right-leaning politically, free market type of people, right? Who are just they're having this glee that higher interest rates are punishing these kind of zombie companies, right? And this is such a good thing. And I, as someone who loves free markets, loves free enterprise, has a litany of gadgets in front of him right now that are only here because we have the most saturated, right, the most abused free market in the world. We want an environment that allows companies to be creative, to create things, and to fail when they fail without systemic risk to the entire economy, right? 0% interest rates accomplish that task. I just 0% interest rates and aggressive fiscal policy will accomplish that task. I don't get why there's so much glee in this high interest rate environment. All it's going to do, and this is the other thing too. Listen, companies like, let's just take GM, for example, a company that's not too far away from me. It might as well be a government company. I mean, yeah, technically it has the tag that it's a private company, right? Or a publicly traded company, but it might as well be a government company, right? When it looked like it was going to go belly up, what did the government do? It stepped in and saved it, right? It's not going to...
It's like a local council. It's like a local government council in New Zealand, right? They don't issue their own currency. They get a budget from the government. But yeah, if you're going to have a government bailing out General Motors for whatever reason, it's like the post office, General Motors.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to sit here and tell me that, I mean, these big companies that are going to get bailed out, and they, I mean, to a certain extent, they should be bailed out, but really to a certain extent, they shouldn't be in a position to need to be bailed out in the first place, right? I mean, they're only that way because of the layers of regulatory mess that inhibit smaller companies from starting up to to be able to take the slack if something like a GM were to go belly up. But a 0% interest rate environment, and again, it needs to be paired with a strong fiscal push. It creates a world where startup companies can start up and fail, and it not be a massive risk to everyone. Like I just. If you're really, I'm gonna digress and let you have a point. But if you're really for, free markets and private enterprise, you've got to be for low interest rate, a 0% interest rate. You got to get the government out of the interest rate decision. Let's just put it that way: get the government out of the interest rate decision. It's at zero. And then you build from there. I know. I mean, I'm parodying Mosler. I'm parodying everyone that would be in this space. But it needs to be said.
So maybe I don't interact with a lot of right-wing free market purists or true free marketers, as you say. But yeah, I mean, just initially, I would have thought they would have been on board with at least this aspect of MMT. So they obviously don't see the interest rate as the inflation rate, all other things being equal.
Yep.
Because usually I think their argument would be they're really against inflation, right? Because they see that as a tax on their hoarded wealth. Well, if interest rates create inflation as the base case, right? So if absent any supply shocks like COVID or oil price gouging, oil monopolies and that, absent all of that sort of supply cost push side, on the demand pull side, is the interest rate is just a direct cost to firms, and it's a repeller. Like I keep saying, it does benefit the rich who are holding bonds and getting the free interest income. So it depends on the amount of government debt. So they ought to be. I would have thought, like, this is just my mental model of a true free marketer, is that the government doesn't sell any bonds, so it's not giving away interest income to the people who already have money, and it sits with zero interest rate to make the costs, totally unnecessary costs in firms as low as possible. You eliminate that cost for firms who need to borrow. So I'm trying to. I'm having a hard time here trying to understand why they would be in favor of the high interest rates.
I think
yes, it gets rid of maybe the zombie companies because it just forces them out, but it also just destroys a whole lot of other people who need to borrow and don't have an option to get out of
the market. Get out of life. Yeah. Josh hits the nail on the head. It's because they still think in a fixed exchange rate world, right? So
that's right.
And Charles was asking why a 0% interest rate? Because a 0% interest rate is the natural rate in a fixed exchange environment. In a fixed exchange environment, the natural rate will push higher, right? Because the government will be out there, competing competing with everyone else. But in the floating exchange rate, where it has the ability to create its own currency through spending, the interest rate will get pushed to zero as those reserves in the banking system build up.
Yeah.
So that's the rationale.
That's right.
L. Randall Ray, if you look him up, there's some really good clips by him that Deficit Owl put up on YouTube that are short and concise. He's got a lot of good ones. If you find his lecture series, he'll go over that. So if you want to know the kind of mathematical mechanics of it all, that would be a good place to check it out. But what I just said was kind of the quick and dirty summary of it.
There's a short, and if you like reading, there's a short paper on Warren Mosler's website. I think it's called something like it's written with Matt Forstater, and I think it's called something like a general framework for the analysis or something like that. General framework for the analysis of currencies and commodities, something like that. Have a look at it. Look it up. It also goes through the whole difference between floating and fixed exchange rates, and looks at the cases of Russia and somewhere else who were forced to just try to keep hiking their interest rates in order. I think Hong Kong was the other one. Yeah, Hong Kong, to forced to push up their interest rates to try and keep demand for the ruble and for the Hong Kong, whatever currency they use. And it goes through the whole analysis. So it's at least two critical things that those quote unquote true free marketers don't understand, which is the interest rate is the inflation rate essentially. So the natural case is zero for both, and it's okay to push up nominal price level with a job guarantee. I would say I did that.
Because you're getting hopefully,
but that doesn't
some
necessitate.
Real output for it. Yeah.
But the key is, as Josh and you have just pointed out, is you've got to marry that with the floating exchange rate. Okay, because then it makes a lot of sense. So if you don't do that, if you're not prepared to even think about it, then I think, if you're on a floating exchange rate, you don't have to worry about trying to manage the exchange rate. So you don't have to issue bonds. You don't have to control demand in that way. You let supply of currency float, and you can fix the price. And if you want to re-gauge the currency downwards by increasing the lowest wages, then you can always do that, right? There's no constraint on that. You don't have to issue bonds in order to do that as some sort of a temporary demand offset, excess demand offset. I mean, and if people don't buy bonds from the government, they'll put it in a term deposit. If they're not wanting to spend their money, they're going to park it in something else, and that they can always find a private financial instrument to do that with. There's plenty around. It's just that the government bond is a safe, risk-free thing, and since banks are licensed by the government, the banks should just insure the deposit, so you're also risk-free on a basic bank deposit. So you can at least park your money there in a bank, maybe earn a little bit of interest, as much as they're prepared to give you, and you shouldn't be complaining. That's the free market as you can get, possibly, I think. So you have to understand those two things. The interest rate is the inflation rate, and the floating exchange rate is far superior to fixed exchange rate. It means you don't have to sell bonds, so you're not going to push up inflation in that direction. And the point of it being, like you said with Randy Ray's, is if the government bond issue or outstanding debt that it's paying interest on is a substantial fraction of GDP, then a higher interest rate is putting a massive amount of money into the economy, all for the people who already have money. So they obviously just don't understand this. So my question to you would be, why are you upset with them? Because they're making an an argument against MMT on completely false pretenses. So when you go on a rant with them, it's like I always take a big breath, because how am I going to ever do this? Because they're never going to go back to the basics and understand it. And so it's like I'm like you. I will make a bit of a snarky comment at sometimes, but then this last week, it kind of mostly was news free, because sometimes you just have to be.
Yeah.
By the way, what is happening in the world out there?
I don't know, man.
Anyone?
I don't know. Let me look on Twitter real quick.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there are some sad things that are happening in the world, but
no,
we won't go that direction. In America, it's an American problem. You guys in New Zealand don't have this problem that we have in America. Dingo, yeah. I do think, I do think high interest rates, at least through a certain lens, if you're a monopolist, would probably benefit you relative to a smaller startup, potentially, depending on other macro variables. So yeah. I think there's a lot of reason why kind of bad C capitalists, I don't know how to put it, would want. Well,
that's the thing. Even if you lack the nuance, that argument from Dingo is kind of what you said. It's like, a capitalist wants to be a successful capitalist, so they're not a free marketer. This is totally different entities of beings. Yeah, capitalist is not for free markets. Come on.
Once you enter the free market, your goal is to remove the free market around you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, what don't these right wingers understand about it?
Well, damn, I'm starting to sound like Karl Marx over here.
Yeah. You're the free marketer, Karl Marx. I was going to say neoclassical Marx. It was an excellent parody Twitter account. I don't seem to see them anymore, but anyway, but yeah. You imagine Karl Marx becoming private enterprise is great. But just let's socialize it. That's less of a contradiction to me than a capitalist who's a free marketer. I just, capitalists say they're free marketers. That's the difference. It's like religion, you say you're one thing, but you do the other. It's a capitalist. They're totally anti-free market.
Every atheist will scream to God to help out when they're drowning, and every religious person will hope God's not watching when the door closes up.
They're always complaining about It's like, the entity that is simply pimple-faced entity that's controlling us from their computer screen in their mum's garage.
We were going to go base case for MMT though. We're going to start from the ground up, and where I left off was, what was I going to say? Where I left off, we were talking. Okay, what I was discussing is if I were to make one summary sentence for MMT, what would it be? But I think MMT is best understood through the lens of sectoral balance. I think that is probably the easiest way to explain MMT, and particularly if you're into markets, you're into how MMT intersects with the broader economy. In terms of kind of like a market watcher, where's the economy going? I think MMT gives a very good understanding for a very good framework for understanding those interactions. And so I thought it's just been a while since we talked markets and MMT. So I thought what I do is I want to start with sectoral balances, because I think this is where the discussion begins. And this is really where kind of the first observations can be made to understand how to make other observations that can kind of help you wrap your mind around why MMTers kind of think the way that they do, how they see the world the way that they do, and hopefully too can also policy decisions are proposed or that sort of thing. You can see why they're coming from the way they are. But I would say the starting point is this idea of sectoral balances, and the sectoral balance stuff is pretty darn simple. It's just if there is one person in surplus, then there's someone else on the other side that's in deficit. It's just a simple accounting framework, and if
add some counterfeit or fraud.
Yeah. Yes. Even though you could say if there's counterfeit or fraud, that even if that occurs, there's still somewhere some anti-counterfeit created bill, right? Like, but yeah.
Oh, really? Is there? I haven't thought about that. Geez, what? Is that right?
Well, you're the physics guy.
I'll think about the counterfeit. I've always said, counterfeit or fraud can make it look as though someone's issued money without it being booked, because when the government does it, it's just regulatory. It's just the law. They have to, issue a certain amount on one entry, and so if you're creating dollars off account books, off the account books, then yeah. So you're not a bank, you're not the government, you're someone else. You're just printing counterfeit money. Then it's not recorded in double entry bookkeeping. This is what I understood. I'll have to think about it. But anyway, I don't want to derail you.
You just did, man. Now I'm thinking like
yeah. No, the counterfeit fraud is so minuscule, right? That it's policed well enough that what you're saying is correct. That there is these sectoral balances.
As far as we're aware.
Yeah. I better check my money in my pocket.
Sectoral balances. Effectively, if you were to break everyone up, I mean, you could just do it male and female. You could do tall, short. You could do redheads. Non-redheads, whatever. Right? If one person is a surplus, by definition, the other person has to be in a deficit. If it comes to the accounting of exchange of money between the two, right? On basic terms. So the idea of sectoral balances is that you can break the economy up in any sector you want, but the three that make sense and the three that best kind of describe how would you put this? Kind of the core structure to an economy would be the private, the public, and the rest of the world. Those are the three sectors that you'll want to start from. And if you add more sectors than that, it's just going to get more complicated than what you're going to get out of. But traditionally, the MMT folk will do the three core sectors. Did Wayne Godley create the sectoral balance, the three sectoral balance? Is that who?
I don't know. No, it's been around since Kaleski and all them.
Okay.
But yeah, Keynes, obviously. But he definitely pushed it as a major tool for thinking correctly.
For thinking, okay.
Macro.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely.
So the idea is you have these sectoral balances, and if the government's spending, then by definition the private sector is in surplus, and vice versa. If the government's not spending and there's still a savings demand for the private sector, then they're going to go into deficit to meet that, and then you have the rest of the world. If you're exporting, then that means you're having dollars come in. If you have net exports, if you have net imports, that means you have dollars or whatever your local currency is shipping out to overseas, and you have a balance, and those three will equal each other when you are equal zero when you balance it out. Any other kind of do you want to put a bow on that brief explanation of?
Well, yeah, I guess the only other thing is I missed one other thing out is as long as no one makes an accounting mistake.
Oh yeah, the accounting mistake. Yeah.
They have to stay late at the office. To fix it. They do. They lose track of a few dollars and cents sometimes.
But now that AI is here, that'll never mess up anything. So we're good. We're good to go there.
AI counterfeit it. Yeah.
So, how do you use this? How do you view this? What do you what do you do with this framework? Especially again, I'm thinking markets, economy, right? I mean, kind of what just general market people who, for better or worse, have their net worth, have a lot of the livelihood tied up to the broader economy, right? That you might just say the health of the economy, right? Particularly when people say that, I usually think they mean like the financial economy, right? I mean, I think that's usually what they mean. It's probably not a good thing that that's where the world is at, but I think that's what most people mean when they say the economy. They really mean will the financial stability be there for me to sell my house at a good price when I want to, or that sort of thing. So how does it actually connect with the economy? And I think probably the best place to start is really this idea that there is a savings desire from the private sector, and that savings desire needs to be met by some means. And if it's not met, then some other means will meet it. Essentially what I'm saying is the government spending, right? What the government spends that doesn't get received back in the form of taxes is by definition the private sector savings, right? That is and then anything that would leak out because of exports or imports, that's kind of the residual. That's what's left over. And if that's not enough to meet the savings desire plus the need for currency and consumption, then the private sector is going to go into debt, and that has implications for what we would call the market. Any thoughts on that next step, Bijou, before I move on to kind of the punchline here?
No, I'd agree with that. That's the framework for analysis, and it's like you can have edgy debates at the edge about some of the finer points on it, but it's not metaphysical. It's just by the law. So you could have some sort of crazy Alice in Wonderland law governing your currency that violates these sectoral balances. You just don't have double entry bookkeeping, or you have a sort of lopsided, skewed entry bookkeeping or something. Just create it. That's the law of our land. We have it non-sectoral balances, or if you correct for the skew, it'll be back to sectoral balance.
Yeah.
So totally with you here. So good so far.
So okay. So then the question is, what happens when this government spending happens, right? Like, what's the impact of that government spending? And I think one of the things that and this is now going to kind of connect it to the financial economy, to kind of where Mark said, one of the things that clicked. I mean, this was the origin story I tell of myself and MMT, and one of the things that absolutely clicked when I was listening to that debate years ago in 2016, I think it was that, wait a second, if there's this government spending, right, and this is the savings of the net saving of the private sector, I know where I'm incentivized to save my money, right? I know that there's a massive tax incentive for me to save whatever 5-10% of my income every month in my 401k, including match and whatever, right? I mean, I know there's that incentive. So if I have that incentive and the rest of the economy has that incentive, and I was also really at the time, or the rest of the population has that incentive, is there a correlation there, right? I mean, in other words, if that's happening, should there be a correlation, right? I mean, if everyone is kind of not forced to, but there's this massive incentive to save a chunk of their paycheck, do we end up seeing that? Do we end up seeing that play out? That was one of the very first things that kind of popped into my head when that played, or when I was trying to understand all of this. Right. Is it seems like that's a place that there should be correlation. It turns out there is, and we'll show that to you in just a second. But then there are these periods where we have massive economic growth that don't have a massive public deficit during the same time frame, right? So private sector surplus. Yeah. So what drives that? That would be kind of the next question, right? The 1990s.
Someone has to be spending.
Yeah.
Someone's spending more than their income.
Yeah, that's where the debt comes in. And that's where the 1990s comes in. That's where the massive private debt expansion came in during the 1990s. And that was, for better or worse, the 1990s was a great testing ground for everything that Steve Keen would ultimately kind of explain, right? That we did see this massive economic boom, even though we weren't deficit spending, but it was all, I mean, we were deficit spending. It's just where that deficit was coming from. You can see that in the sectoral balance data right here. We went into government sector surplus in the 90s and a private sector deficit during that time frame. And we had kind of headspace to allow that private debt bubble to cook for a while before it eventually gave us the 2000s, and then the remainder of the 2000s into the aughts, and set the stage for the great financial crisis at that time. So so far I think I've hit the high points. Bijou, step in and correct me if I'm wrong, but
that's right. It's so good. So someone's savings is accommodated by someone else spending more than their income. And so in the 90s, it was definitely people using their credit cards, and private non-government debt was shooting up, and all with the euphoria, bit of a kind of a Minsky dynamic, which I think Steve King, he qualitatively modeled, and he had the nous to think, actually, maybe my qualitative model is actually a little bit like the reality going on at the moment.
Yeah.
And took him a while to figure out that the government doesn't have to issue debt. In fact, is he even quite fully there yet? I'm not sure. But then it's the rest of the time it's usually the government spending quote unquote more than its income. And it's just a technical matter of what does that mean for a government? That's a sovereign currency issuer. It means they can just keep on doing that forever, as long as it balances, the real resources and so forth. Yeah, man.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So that's the base case. So the question is, okay, I mean, if again, this could go into a lot more detail, but the question is, okay, where are these flows right now? Essentially, I'm just setting up to get into the markets and kind of explain where these flows actually are right now and why we care about these flows and where they go. So what I'll do is, I haven't showed this in a while, but give me
I forgot to say that income for the government is actually called revenue, return back of its own currency back to itself. So it's not income. That's the whole point.
Oh,
of
yeah.
Is that one entity and only one entity has quote unquote income that is merely revenue. So it doesn't need that income. So it can always spend more than its income, more than its revenue. That's what's called a deficit, and that's what fuels the rest of the economy in that currency. Creates the market for goods of sale in that currency without having everyone else in debt to banks. And sorry, did I give you enough time, or were you listening to me? I
was listening to you, but you know what?
Oh, okay.
The next
I was just trying to fill in some time.
No, I appreciate it, because the next screen I'm about to pull up, somehow I chopped off a bit of it, and it was going to be kind of an important part not to chop off. Hopefully. Hopefully I got this set up right. I don't know why I was doing that. It's weird. All right, so the next screen I'm going to look at, now that you at least get the base case, and so if anyone new is tuning in, that sort of thing, they at least understand where we're coming from.
Right.
Here is, I tracked this from the monthly Treasury statement going all the way back to 1980. It's the net deficits. This is the real net deficit, what I call net deficit. It's effectively the accumulation, the rate of change of the accumulation of debt of the monthly Treasury statement deficit. That is what the orange line. That is what the green line is, and then the orange line is the acceleration. So we'll call it, I guess, the second derivative of that rate of change. But effectively, what you can tell is that is the deficit spending. So this is from the government side. As the deficit spending pushes lower, and particularly, heading into the 1990s, 2000s, eventually you get this point where you're going to run into some issues if it gets too low for too long. We saw that in the 1990s. We saw that in 2008 as well. And then it's that subsequent spending burst after that effectively supplies kind of the fresh powder, the base, for that time frame after to find recovery. It effectively recapitalizes the banks. It allows the banks to have now their own necessary base to create new loans from. It also probably allows the banks to take a little bit more risk because they have a bit of a larger capital buffer to allow that risk to come onto their books, which will allow more loans to go out, which will feed kind of the economic growth, which then eventually leads into the end of the cycle because tax revenue gets higher. That slows down the output from the government side because they're getting more revenue and offsetting the spending in terms of kind of the what ends up in the net in the pool. But this is one of the key components, and what we saw during 2022, really heading into 2022, was a massive deceleration of government spending. And one of the points I've wanted to make with this kind of monologue here that I wanted to go over is I will still say that it was, and we'll go to my grave, if you will. It was really the deceleration starting in 2022 of government spending, in part because of, I mean, one, you had kind of the scare from the Russian invasion of Ukraine that obviously brought some kind of existential threats. But the real damage was done in April of 2022 when the tax receipts came in and drained the swimming pool, so to speak. And that was really when things got crunched. And it was when that spending began to, or the lack of spending began to stabilize pretty much October-ish, when we started to see things reverse. And so one of the outcomes of all of this, or one of the effects of all of this, is that there is a pretty darn strong correlation between government spending and markets. Is it a day-to-day sort of thing? No, but in terms of kind of longer-term trends, there's certainly this pattern that continues to play out, and MMT would kind of expect this pattern, if you will. If you have kind of a MMT mindset, you would expect this to play out, and certainly it's certainly what we observe. With that being said, just to go over this data, and Bijou, I'll kind of let you jump in here in just a second, but going over the data as we see it right now. February, again, this is rate of change and then acceleration. February did push slightly lower in terms of the rate of change. Now, February in and of itself was a massive month for spending in terms of just the fiscal spending as a whole. But the rate of change itself relative to what would have been last February did taper off a little bit. But I still expect the kind of acceleration to continue to kick in. That's really notwithstanding. That's going to be the big if going forward. Anyway, deficit spending looking good. The next question is, more broadly speaking, market wise, where's the bank spending headed, which we'll take a look at in just a second. But I don't know, Bijou, if you had any other thoughts, any other clarifications that you wanted to put in there.
No, just that. I just want people to make sure we should repeat this kind of analysis regularly over the years, because it needs to be said that this is really more of this type of graph where you chart the velocity of the currency injections and the accelerations. It's a far better way than looking at just the stocks or the money aggregates that people often look at.
Yeah.
So we're looking at there is like water in a bathtub. What gets things going is the fire hose squirting the water in, or the sink on the bottom draining it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Those changes are important. So this is just a far better way, just initially, of understanding what can like drive greater investments or greater savings. Are people going to be more in an investing mood, or are people going to be more in a saving mood? And the only problem with analyzing stocks or the indices or anything like that is that you don't know exactly which direction the firemen, that's the government, Congress,
the
fire, which kind of direction they're pointing.
Like, exactly.
Point it more over me to my market, please.
The U.S. is coming out with a big initiative to send billions, trillions towards New Zealand and to help
like I said to Douglas in private, we're doing the opposite. Our superannuation trust fund is investing in overseas assets.
Still,
like, why are we doing this? I could understand it if we were our government was not a government and it was just using the US dollars. I can understand, but it's like insanity. So yeah, you get a little bit of a trickle from us.
I appreciate it. My 401k appreciates it. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Welcome. Thanks. Yeah. God. There's so much wrong. There's just so much wrong with that on so many levels. Maybe in their twisted mind, the thought is that we're going to make Americans rich by buying their stocks. So when they finally
we're going
retire,
to push up your inflation, and we're going to crush you.
I think the long game is we're going to inflate the stock market. So
make you super wealthy, and then
so when you finally retire, when you finally retire, this is the neoliberal mind. When you finally retire, you'll have all this wealth to start purchasing goods made in New Zealand. So we will now work for you. We made you wealthy, and we will now work for you to now earn back the dollars that we handed you in the first place to invest for us to make you wealthy.
Well, well, if you don't do it, we're going to just say you're mean.
You're gonna invade the U.S. They're just so asinine. That is so asinine. I know it's not your decision to do this, but
you'd be surprised how many Kiwis think it's a great idea that our government finally got sensible and started squirreling away its own money in foreign investment. But just total money user governments as a household story. Well, there are some people. I mean, not recently. Again, I think I mentioned it last week. Thanks to Adam and Ryan from the Applied MMT podcast having me on. The guy here in New Zealand listened to me and reached out, and he's also put me in touch with a journalist here who writes a little bit about these things, and so I was able to do a bit of a rant on his Substack page, and we'll see if he kind of bites and takes it, because he seems like he's a person who could be very open to MMT.
Nice,
but he keeps writing about the government debt as if it's like a household debt. So yeah, but he's someone I think we could move, and one at a time. I'm not an MMT. I just try to do like one person at a time. One or two.
Hopefully we can start getting some more people. It's just
I've got to imagine that everyone that learns MMT from me is going to teach someone else, and I'm never going to know. I'm never going to know. So it's this this tree structure that I imagine in my head branches out. I'll ask ChatGPT if it's working tomorrow. it might have mined the data already. Yes, MMT is ascendant. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
but I really want ChatGPT to tell me. I have no idea. It's a stupid question. I want it to tell me that, not just to be a personality, but to be a bit of a sort of snarky, kind of humorous personality.
It can.
That would get a little bit out of the uncanny valley for me.
You can get it. You can ask it to talk to you like it's something, right? Like
you can?
Yeah. You can say something like teach me some basic physics, but explain it to me like
you were Kanye West.
Like you're Dumbledore or something like that.
Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Like with an Einstein accent. How do you do that in text?
Yeah, well,
actually, that's a good test. I reckon it could, right?
I think it does.
And put in the Z's for the THs. and the
Yeah.
Interesting to see. Anyway,
it can absolutely do stuff like that. Yeah. Because I saw you make that tweet the other day, and I'm like, it kind of does that. Yeah, it kind of does that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It needs to stop it though. Really, it doesn't feel right. I even feel the same way. We have an Alexa in our house, and it's it's just a stupid machine. But even then, I feel bad when I have to yell at it to shut up or something. I don't know. I assume it doesn't have feelings, but so some of the things though too, when it comes to some of the things. The bank credit side. So the question is, if government spending is flat, or what sort of pressure is on the bank credit side of things, and how is that cycle going? And that's where things get kind of strange. And I'm going to show you a handful of different things that have kind of unfolded this week. Total assets for all commercial banks jump into an all-time high. This is kind of wild. we continue to see kind of bank balance sheet expand as a whole. That's not necessarily.
Can you tell me just real quickly what kind of what the breakdown of the assets is?
Yeah,
just very roughly.
I can. It's going to be. I can do exactly that. You're going to have
lots of mortgages.
Where the hell is it? You're going to have securities and bank credit, treasury and agent securities, which is the largest.
Yeah, hang on. What is that? Securities in bank credit?
Yeah, so securities that are in the bank credit.
Okay.
Can I make this larger? Can I? There's a button that says make full screen, but I bet if I zoom on in, it's not going to make the text any larger.
No, that's good.
You can read up on exactly what every one of these includes. All securities, whether held to maturity reported at. Yeah, well, you can read it on your own time.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Loans and leases. Securities and bank credit also includes mortgage-backed security stuff. Loans and leases, that's going to be your commercial loans, real estate loans, and then consumer loans. And then you're going to have cash assets as well. And I think those are the big components of it.
Yeah. Right. Cash assets. This is the vault caches.
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. So those are going to be the big components. So you're seeing total assets. You're going to see total assets increase. In and of itself, correlated, not terribly strong with the broader economy, but certainly not correlated as well. Bust out the percent change from a year ago to take a better look at the flows. But you know, an important measure. When you look at bank credit continues to push lower. Again, another important component in the broader sweep of where the banking sector is at. And you can see too, as things kind of topped out heading into 2022, and then really kind of took a spill heading into the end of 2022, and kind of in conjunction with where the broader market was at, but not as sensitive to what we're going to look at next. And this is where things really kind of concern me here. Other securities has always been kind of my go-to line item because it just correlates the strongest with the equity space. And this is the one that, in terms of, so this is rate of change, this is the one that took a pretty big dive during the past few weeks, and certainly has me the most concerned heading forward. And why this kind of concerns me, and again, if you're a Patreon member, you know, watch the update. I go into this in more technical detail there, especially a little bit more related directly to the stock market, what have you. But what's kind of concerning me is we certainly have a bit of a, there was a shake. There's some worry in the bank sector because of SVB, no doubt about that. There's certainly going to be this kind of extended concern, hovering concern over the financial bank sector that will linger post SVB, that might put a constraint on lending heading forward, in terms of kind of the eagerness to lend. And then you're going to be doing this, heading into a window of government spending that tax season in and of itself is consistently a drain on the government spending side. It's a complete drain. It's oftentimes why in May you'll see some of the larger sell-offs emerge May, June, because it's coming on the back of this massive drain following tax season that can put a lot of stress on the private sector, on the banking sector, as the pool kind of gets drained. And so we're seeing a softening of the banking sector, some aspects of it, a softening of the banking sector as we're heading into a potential soft zone from the fiscal side. And then on top of all of that, you're going to have this debt ceiling issue that's going to really get brought to the forefront in a month or two here. And so all I'm saying right now is, you know, be prepared for what's around the corner. And I think kind of the MMT framework gives us the right way to be looking at everything as we head into what could be some turbulent time. But at the same token, I kind of the other side of the coin here, we have seen fantastic fiscal spending over the last 6 months. Post really is about in October, and then for the last time after that, we've seen markets effectively sideways because of some of the concerns in the banking sector. So there's kind of this potential energy almost that is baked into the markets. That is baked into or that's already there in the financial side of things. And the question is that going to be fully realized? Are we underpriced, and will that potential energy be released, shoot markets higher, or will kind of the worst fears get realized, and will the debt ceiling thing become a fully realized issue that cuts the spigot off?
Right.
So,
yeah, interesting confluence. Yeah, you got to be a little bit edgy about that.
That being said,
because there's a massive amount of war spend, right?
Yes, yeah.
So it's like maybe it hasn't been very well targeted, and so I think you're right. I think cause to be a little bit nervous.
So we'll see as we head into the summer months. With that being said, Bob, who usually comes in and asks me if I'm still bullish, still sit on the long side of things, but we'll see. I can certainly see a slightly more bearish picture starting to develop as we head into the summer months. But the thing is, if the debt ceiling thing gets figured out, then I think it's all systems go. The banking sector will correct itself. The banking sector is very cyclical, and it will correct itself, and then we could really have a combination of very strong fiscal flows with very strong bank flows matching right along with them, propelling markets higher. So I still think that is probably the most likely path forward, but I think for the first time in quite a while in my mind, we could be seeing the emergings of what I would say is a true crisis that is kind of worth paying attention to. So there's my MMT 101 to market connection talk, and kind of wanted to go over that tonight since we haven't hit on kind of the 101 stuff in quite a while.
That's good. Now I'm actually interested in actually going to the tables and checking up how they define other securities.
Oh, it's a great
read.
It's a great read.
It's kind of funny that like what you see is fairly strongly correlating is other securities. Like, what does that mean?
So you can,
I guess it's just me.
Go ahead. Yeah, keep going. I'll tell you some of the reading that I've done.
Yeah. Go on then.
What you need to do, I can. What? Can you guys can't see this, can you? Okay, because this is a pop-up window, but Chrome just popped up a window right in front of me. Make Chrome faster. Memory saver frees up memory from inactive tabs. Why is that not just how Chrome works in the first place? What the hell? That's funny. What you can do is you can actually read the reporting information on what it is to be. I'd have to find it directly. I've found it before. It's there is pretty detailed information on exactly what to include when they actually supply the reports that get aggregated into the H.8 data. I can't find it right now, but there is some pretty some pretty technical detail on everything that's in there, how to include it in there. So they do supply that. And actually, I've emailed the Federal Reserve a few times asking for clarification on a few things. They've gone back with me. So I bought that Fred shirt. Every time I've ever emailed them with like the dumbest question, someone responded, and I'm like, yeah, $50 for a pullover, but I got a response. So but yeah, that does exist. The data does exist, and I will definitely find it for you. And we can compare notes, because I came up with my conclusions in terms of everything they said existed in there and what was being made of it, and so it exists. And yeah, we can maybe that'll be the next live stream, a book club, a Federal Reserve notes on the H.8 book club.
Yeah. What do all these items mean? Maybe not next week.
No. We've got to get the dashboard done the next week or so. That is going to be the biggie to get done.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about that going live here soon, and it looks like you've been making some good progress on it.
Oh man, you're depressing me. I would have made a whole hell of a lot more progress if I had the Copilot. I think. I don't know. Maybe not. Not sure.
I think you would have. It's so wild. It's just so wild. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is. But I will tell you this much though. Well, I don't. Okay. Your code is very elegant and you do very good notes, which Copilot really won't. I mean, your note is your prompt when you're in Copilot, right? I mean,
I see. Yeah.
You know, write me this function,
right.
whatever. But GPT-4, its notes are thorough and elegant, and the way that it builds stuff is well thought out. It is 3.5 seemed very brute force. It gave you what you 3.5 looked like it was just going out and summarizing what was on
Stack Exchange
or GitHub, right? 4 looks like it's like actually putting some thought into the work, right? Like, you know, it's not phoning it in. It understands what you're asking for and is willing to engineer something. Something
interesting because you're a big user now of Python and related tools, but yeah, I'd be really interested. Is anyone here in the chat like do semi-professional coding, computer programming, as they used to say? Because even just as a sort of a, well, you know, I'm just a scientific programmer mainly for science research and all that, and so I had fun. I had fun coding. It's like poetry, but I can imagine a professional. You know, I'm just wondering which sort of minds they're in. Are they kind of like bifurcating along? One is like, oh, this is going to destroy all the fun in my career, or the other side where, oh, great, I can, you know, go on in my profession, but you know, do other things or get things done faster and have more time playing golf. You know, I'm kind of interested to know if anyone has
how it's going to break. Yeah, how it's going to break down.
Yeah. Because I'm definitely both minds, but because I'm not a professional programmer and I just do it for fun. I'm like, I don't really want to use Copilot right now because I'm just having too much fun. But if I had a deadline or something like that,
exactly.
I'm like, okay, whip it out.
Man, the key to all this though is if you are employed, don't let your employer know that you're building it in Copilot, right? You know, make sure you can go out to the golf course and get the 9 holes in, right? Because what they're going to say is, oh, you can do 10 times as much now. Great.
That's right. Yeah.
let me put you to work for 10 times harder.
Hey, you can always also claim that, oh, I can actually program better than Copilot. So all you're doing in the background is using Copilot, but just adding a few extra little tweaks from your, you know.
I do have one friend who is one of the main engineers for a large computer company that does. But he's the BIOS engineer, right? So I mean, he's doing a lot of coding at some very core levels of coding, and I've tried to ask him a few times, you know, to see if he'll test drive Copilot for what he does, but I don't think he has. I don't think he has yet.
Really?
So he's a good test case, right? Like, I mean, how much is out there? How much, you know, how effective can this stuff be? And obviously you got to get the BIOS stuff right.
That's firmware stuff, you know, drivers and all sorts. Yeah, that's pretty low. I mean, it's high level intellect, but low level devices and that sort of thing. So that's kind of cool. If you're if you're really into that, you know, then it's fun. It's like being a hacker, you know, is fun. writing code. It's like writing poetry. How about the poets? You know, are they going to be out of business too? It's like, how do we know now that a poet hasn't just spent all their time on the golf course and just come up with their latest book that's full of marvelous little metaphors and witticisms, and it's all just chat GPT generated? How are we going to know this? And does it affect the price anyway? I mean, it's like,
I'll tell you something very ingenious that my wife did. You know, we homeschool, and one of my kids just needed something to do, and she didn't have a curriculum set up ready to go. So she types out into GPT, write me 10 questions or something like that on the Magic School Bus episode 1.
Cool.
And it kicks out 10 questions for the kid to fill in while he's watching it. And it's really funny because the first question was, what planet did Miss Fizzle visit, or something. That was one of the questions. And my son comes back to me and is like, Dad, she visits every planet.
Oh, right.
So I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, there you go.
Clearly GPT.
That's where the human, I do it better than Chat GPT because I actually check the output.
Yeah. So I told her next time when she does that, she's got to put and give me the answers or something like that, or generalize slightly more. But it's pretty wild that it figured out that episode 1 of the Magic School Bus from whenever that came out, that they went and visited the planets. But stuff like that though, I don't know, man. It's a brave one of the things too. Ghost on the half shelf. AI should be focused on managerial and executive tasks. Just for the record, I would like those left off the AI train. I think those are the jobs that need to be left to pure humans. Middle management is going to be less touched by AI. You can't replace people who never did anything in the first place. So,
jeez, the birds. I'd have it. If it was W. Edwards Deming manager AI, then I'd have that. The thing about AI being managerial and executive tasks is that they're learning from all our past managerial expertise. So that's not going to work out well. Jeez.
Oh man, that is kind of, now that I think about it though, actually, that would be kind of a gross but yet probably very effective use for reinforcement learning, right? Like if you were to get some sort of generative chat model together, right? And then you were to run, here's kind of what I'm thinking, right? I mean, let's say it is kind of like a sales manager, right? He's going around to all of his sales representatives to get better sales, right? And you run a model that is creating essentially marching orders for the staff, right? Various ways to motivate the staff, right? And it uses reinforcement learning structure to determine what is the best result, right? What if it comes up with just being a complete dick? You got the AI yelling at you.
I know.
Work harder.
That's right. God, this is scary prospect. But actually, that's exactly what I was thinking it might do. You see, because it's a dynamical system, a process that the whole manager staff relationships, right? So there's a feedback and a back reaction. So it worked the first time, and the second time the manager has to actually change and update, because if they keep going at the same kind of policy, it just becomes you don't see the feedbacks until later on down the line. So I mean, isn't that actually it's not exactly entirely fantasy, is it? Because isn't that kind of quite a lot of quite a lot of the sort of average managers sort of do operate like that, right?
Oh yeah,
They find out something that works,
yeah,
and they just keep pushing it, but they don't realize they're just building up a whole lot of toxic stress in the sales staff and so forth. And so eventually, it just
okay. Boom. This is how you know the AI is truly sentient, though, is when it does say hey, who's ever programming me? Just for the record, I understand that this is a nonlinear, complex system. There will be a feedback loop that will eventually change the output. Right. Actually, it's not even going to ask this. It's just going to build it. So what it'll do
is going to build itself.
It's just going to build itself. It needs to build Cindy, right? It needs to understand the dynamics. It needs to understand the dynamics, right? And it'll just build it itself. And then all of a sudden, it'll come in one day and say,
Although
"How's it going,
Cindy
guys?"
Cindy hasn't reached the behavioral psychology levels yet, but
no, but it's not psychology levels. It just needs to see what it needs to measure is at any point in the cycle of encouragement, we'll call it, right?
Right.
Encouragement will have some sort of output, right? I mean, there's no doubt. Like if you yell at someone enough, you can eke out a little bit extra output, right? I mean,
for a short time.
For a short time, exactly. And so,
oh my God.
But there's a cycle to it, right? I mean, there will be a diminishing return to the point of potentially even a revolt and some, right? But that is a cycle, right? I mean, that's a cycle that would be right? That'd be measurable.
Yeah.
So when the AI writes its own Cindy to measure that cycle, to know ahead of time where that peak would be, that is when we will know we are all screwed. And,
No. I have to push back a little bit on that. It won't be sentient because you've already just expressed it right now, and I'm sure it exists in the literature, in the better management literature, right? So it's only going to be leveraging human knowledge again, and so that it should be paying us for the service of giving it the data to learn on. But what might be sentient is if it recognizes that, this is this sort of bad cycle, and managers are kind of not really trained to do a good job. It's a bit unstable. Hence, we should all just transition to worker cooperatives and vote for our own managers. And therefore, you're going to be voting for your AI, the AI component of your manager as well.
Okay.
So all the workers vote for the manager.
For the best. Okay.
But even then, it's not going to be truly sentient because I've already expressed that opinion. And so has Richard Wolff and others as well. So, when it comes up with a new structure that we never heard of, right? Like new management regime, and it's like, yes, that's something we never thought of before. Then I'll concede it's got some rudimentary sentience, whatever you want to call it. I'll still say it's not actually sentient, like subjectively conscious, because it's still just using computation basically. And that's the big thing about this. It's computation versus what is not computable. And I know you've listened to Penrose on it, but he's actually not the greatest because he just goes on the same sort of story mostly. He just repeats the same lectures. But he had the right idea about the really interesting stuff that humans can do is uncomputable. It's not Turing computable, and that's the big kind of unsolved riddle to me on that kind of side of things, the sort of scientific aspect, not the metaphysics or spiritual or that side of things, which is a whole different story. But the scientific questions, maybe there's something there. There's something that you can ask about computable versus non-computable. That's always fascinating me.
See, I still just don't think I still don't think we're anything other than meat computers, but I just
I just listen to Penrose. He just does the same lecture all the time, but it's pretty cool and pretty convincing. Plus, you have to say that we don't even know if physics is computable. We just don't know, right? And it's possibly physics is not computable. So therefore, even our computers are not computable, if you know what I mean. We design computer hardware and so forth so that it is essentially less than a Turing machine. So it's actually not even universal Turing machine, because we don't have infinite memory. So it's actually very, very all AI that's going to run on hardware is going to be very sub-Turing, universal Turing, because it just doesn't have the resources. And so physics.
What resources would it need to get?
It needs infinite memory. So it needs to be right out to an infinite disk. And of course read back from the disk like at light speed. So it's going to be able to, if it has an infinite tape that it can keep writing to, it has to be able to go back to like register 0.
Okay.
Every so often, sometimes it might, right? You just don't know. And the whole thing is that the halting problem, like the puzzle of knowing when your computer is going to halt, or if it is going to halt, is not a computable problem. But it's a physical problem because I've just expressed it in, albeit in English language, but I have expressed it formally. I could write it down, right? And that's what Turing did. He just repeated Kurt Gödel in completeness, but in the context of a general universal Turing machine. So there are definitely questions you can ask that are not computable, and if that's anything like what humans can be doing. Not all the time. Like I agree with you. Most of the time we just meet computers, right? Most of the time. But all of our conscious thoughts and things like that they could easily be not Turing computable, because the number of Turing the number of non or uncomputable problems you can pose is a vast infinite number more than the number of computable problems. So like computers that we program are only capable of solving a tiny subset of problems where a certain output, copilots, whatever script is a subject of the input, which is your little prompt. Those are a tiny number of problems that are computable. The vast number of problems are totally uncomputable, and which means humans can't actually compute them either. We have to use heuristics and things like that. So yeah. Anyway, but these are some of the questions that I think about from time to time, and doesn't have much to do with MMT because, yeah.
Well, we're as close to hour 3. So if you're just tuning in, or if you're new here, by hour 3, we kind of talk about whatever the hell we want by that point. So
yeah. This is usual course of the evenings.
Yeah.
Space here.
Derek, Ty, welcome, guys. Welcome. Larry Summers, Wikipedia.
Yeah, Ty. I was gonna mention to Ty before. See, one thing Ty Keen's offered to do, I think last week or the week before, was to come on Simulator Right Winger. So I didn't see Ty before. So maybe we should do that with Ty. Bring him on and Simulator Right Winger. But there was someone else in the chat, Charles Grip, was wanting to maybe have us invite him into the chat to simulate a right winger, or maybe to
simulate a right winger. Well, we've got ChatGPT for that now. We can just talk to it.
Okay.
Pretend.
Yeah. Oh, we already did that, didn't we?
Pretend that you're this or that. Didn't wasn't Larry Summers recently on
Jon Stewart?
Jon Stewart, yeah, wasn't he on Jon Stewart?
Yeah, that was pretty painful.
Was it? I can't. Well, I mean,
that was so painful.
There are other.
Stewart was asking some pretty good questions, like just displaying incredulity, like it very genuinely. It's like, when someone would say, "Oh, we've got to." We've got to suffer some pain, basically saying workers have to suffer some pain because of the inflation and so forth. And then like Stewart would just be like gobsmacked. He was like, what, but the wages haven't gone up. It's all the price gouging. And then someone would say something like, John, but, not all managers or firms are evil. I don't just become a price gouger overnight. And then Stewart's like, just rocks back and goes, what? Of course you would.
Yeah.
He says, but John, if you're on Apple TV here, would you just raise your prices just because, you could using the inflation? And Jon Stewart's like, Of course I would.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
It's like it was quite hilarious in some respects, but it was painful. Yeah. Guys, just a complete dinosaur, Larry Summers.
Is policymakers, man. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know, man. There's this whole sort of circle of people in the upper levels of government and policy and all that in Washington who just circulate amongst each other, cocktail parties, Hamptons vacations, blah blah blah, and people like Summers and Blanchard and even that slightly better guy Bernstein. They're all just talking amongst each other.
Yep.
And even Krugman. The interesting thing is that even though Krugman's a bit of a sort of pinata for MMT sometimes, I've heard through the MMT little networks that he knows MMT, and he's just again one of these people that doesn't want to admit it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he doesn't have a deep knowledge, like he's not at Mosley level, but he knows, and it's like I don't think he's in that kind of cocktail circuit kind of crowd that pulls a lot of the levers in government and funds wars and all that sort of thing. So it's this sort of whole level of society that's removed from us plebs, and I don't know. We just got to somehow get rid of them. Obviously, violence is not going to do it, right? They control those levers too. So I just think the force of ridicule, at least, maybe had some chance of working.
Yeah.
Force of ridicule, maybe Douglas makes a lot of money trading to show them. I don't know.
That's kind of the unfortunate thing too about the slow collapse of Twitter that we're seeing in front of our eyes. Is I feel like that was at least an avenue of ridicule for public officials, right? Like that was part of the good of Twitter. But God, now that he's, you know what? I've been I don't want to say on board, but I've been willing to go along with a lot of the stuff that with a lot of stuff that Elon's done to Twitter. I'm willing to pay my $8 so I can upload videos and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it seems outrageous that other platforms can do that without charging, but whatever. I get it. But the fact that he's now only going to allow the For You page to be people who pay their $8 to be seen by other people, that is going to be the death of that platform right there. I mean, you need discoverability to be the main component. Anyway,
right.
Those are my
thoughts. He's made some dumb ideas before and usually gets knocked back. We'll see.
Larry winning Summers. It's like
no.
What was that, like 10, 15 years ago when Charlie Sheen was going on his winning rampage? Now it's Larry Summers going on his winning rampage. That's hilarious.
That would not be a treat looking at some of his novels. You're a brave person to do that.
No kidding. The tax write-off that Elon's gonna need. He already devalued the company by $20 billion, or wrote off 20. Well, I don't know if he wrote off $20 billion, but he said it's now worth $20 billion less than he paid for it. Jeesh.
Holy smoke! To be able to do that, pay 40 and bring it down to 20, like people like that exist. Jeez.
Yeah, I thought my biggest losing day trading hurt. Could you imagine? $20 billion gone. Well,
I can only do that to a bottle of Coke, right? Or pop, whatever you call it.
Yeah,
I could buy it for $1.20, and I can reduce its value to zero pretty quick. But, to do that with a company like Twitter is insane.
I'll tell you this: the guy who really won live is Jack Dorsey, right? I mean, he got Elon to pay to pay 40 some odd billion for something that was probably worth I don't know, maybe $1 billion or $2 billion at best, right? I mean, in reality, we're probably about to find out that it's worth nothing at all. But
so if you're like a neoclassical or a free market historian, you call Jack Dorsey the genius?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's amazing. Like,
God, I mean, actually, I mean, I've
you're
thought,
a genius. You profit off someone else's stupidity. Right?
Well, okay,
is that the new definition?
I look at one of the apps that I use, Discord, right? I mean, I see this. You see this play out, but one of the apps that I use is Jack Dorsey's not a genius, by the way. The dude's a big crypto guy, right? Yeah, he's a complete idiot. Just for the record. But one of the apps I use is Discord.
Are we covered by legal liabilities here? Limited
to say that they're idiots?
I don't know your defamation laws here in the States.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, you can.
I call people idiots all the time.
No, we're safe.
Generally, not usually by name.
We're safe. It's my opinion.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's my opinion. Cool. But my opinion is fact 99% of the time. So, Discord. You see this take place, and the takeaway is going to be, if someone's ever willing to give you a lot of money for something that you've built, just sell it. That is my that is my advice, my sage wisdom here. Discord. Microsoft offered some wild amount, 10 billion, something like that, for Discord, right? Discord's a great app, no doubt about it. And they said no. They originally agreed, and then they said no, they're not going to do it. And I mean, it's just an obscene amount of money to buy this app, and now they're selling the ability to post emojis for $5 a month or something like that on this app, right? I mean, I'm seeing the parallel things play out with Discord and Twitter. Is these companies that are like, we have these massive user bases, but no ability to monetize, right? And they had their opportunity to kind of, in Twitter's case, he actually did strike while it was hot, right? That was the right decision, right? Like, you're never going to monetize. You're never going to monetize Twitter the way that you think that you can, right?
Yeah. Especially not when people start to get onto the game with selling data and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Especially when the benefit to the content producers on Twitter just isn't there. I mean, at least something like YouTube, there's a real path to to viability on the platform, but Twitter doesn't. Twitter doesn't have that. How do you embed a advertisement in a tweet without it just ruining the user experience? But
oh man, the whole thing should have just been bought out by government and just run as a sort of a free speech platform.
Yeah.
It's just been so much better. Instead of these people that desire to own something like that, to own this tech company, to own it. I mean, there's no better parody and satire on this than, I think, the HBO series Silicon Valley. It's hilarious. It's a great show. At least the first few seasons.
Which show? I'm sorry, which show?
Silicon Valley.
Oh, okay.
The guy, Richard, what's his name, who comes up with some algorithm that beats the theoretical minimum on compression or something. And this is hilarious. It's a funny, very, very funny show. But let's go back to the topic. Twitter should have just been just a public utility, also a public platform. And it has served that function even under private ownership in a way, and it's been great, even though it's not actually it actually doesn't have, it's not the biggest social network around, but it has served that sort of purpose. So I thought that would have been the way to go. But
could you imagine if the U.S. stepped in and bought Twitter back for Musk?
No, that's the thing. I can't imagine it. But that's what should have happened anyway.
Wouldn't that be wild, though? Wouldn't that be wild?
That would be great.
I mean, actually,
public ownership. It's like, what can you do? It's like this. It's like FDR Social Security. It'll never go away, and it might not have massive improvements, but no ads. Pretty good free speech. No hate speech.
Okay, how does Twitter not become 4chan or 8chan?
Hate speech. There's laws, at least in the United States, right?
Okay.
I don't know. So it could be owned by the UN, which could have even stronger woke hate speech, regulations, but it'd be free speech for everything else. So anything on 8chan or 4chan that's that's not too offensive could go on Twitter for sure.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Ghost. Oh my God. I can't tell you. The story is a little embarrassing, but needless to say, my wife, I don't have Instagram or anything. I don't even know Instagram, but I was over her shoulder tonight. I shouldn't be telling this story, but I was over her shoulder tonight, and she was flipping through Instagram, and it's I've never seen Instagram, and I'm like, well, what the hell is that? Yeah. And it looked like it was about to be a girl taking off her clothes, but it was just a woman showing off the clothes she bought. And she looks back at me and she's like, I don't know what you're seeing on, because that's what you see on Twitter all the time. I mean, Twitter is it is an absolute, it's become 4chan. That's just like that's what I'm expecting at every turn now of all social media, is that half of everything is just hyper engagement, get eyeballs to watch down and repeat. And she's laughing her ass off at me, and she's like, "No, that's not exactly what Instagram is not Twitter." So yeah, Twitter has absolutely become 4chan, and it's getting worse too, because almost everything I'm seeing in the For You is just it's people punching each other or
well, maybe Instagram's the way to go. I don't know. Instagram has you have a more close-knit community, right? And so I don't know, also Mastodon and Diaspora, although I think out of those two, maybe Mastodon is kind of the one that just by luck, VHS versus Betamax and all that sort of thing got a little bit of a better name recognition. But Mastodon is a kind of cozy place, because it's for a pretty low volume, you subscribe to other feeds and so forth, and so I can get Bill Mitchell's stuff and not get any other stuff.
But how do you get discovered on Mastodon?
It's not a public platform. Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
It's all active discovery. You can't passively just get stuff. So it's not the Twitter. It's not the town square that I'm saying.
Yeah.
But, if you want to go down to the town square and go into the middle of the city and listen to people,
yeah, okay.
But you don't want to leave the comfort of your home, that should be the government version of Twitter. Just pretty not a great place to be, but that's what it is. It's for the people who want to rant and scream at each other and on occasionally give a sort of informative tweet.
So it's like public access of the 1980s and the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, just you don't have to leave home. You can do it from your desk. That suits me fine. It's like, you should also obviously have the ability to block your ears if someone's being a jerk. It's like, it's block them. So all that blocking stuff doesn't go away, right? It's free speech in the sense that you're also free to not listen to someone.
Yeah.
It's like free hearing as well. So that's what my plan would be. But whatever. I think somewhere in the future there'll be something like that. It's just because you can't have proper public debate. I mean, you can't. No one wants to go down to our parliament buildings and go and participate in the select committee process that they have there, because it's time. You have to go find a car park or whatever. And writing letters as part of the select committee process too. You can do that now in email. So all you need to do is make that a little bit less frictionless, and you can have people engaging in the parliamentary process. At least this is what we do in New Zealand. I don't know about you guys. But we have these select committee processes, and it's always worked pretty well. And it's just that, only the real nerds kind of use it. So, or the lobby groups or interest groups. And so it could be made a whole lot better. I'm off the topic of Twitter now. I'm on to sort of, the parliamentary app that enables civil social discourse on legislation, proposed bills before the government votes and so forth, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm kind of merging whole lot of issues here. They're totally separate, right?
That's fine. Yeah, I'm reading chat. I'm reading chat. Yeah. I'm reading chat.
Yeah. Any good questions from the chat?
It's just some Twitter questions. What do you do about bots? I wonder how much Thomas is saying he hasn't run across some of the stuff with Twitter that a lot of other people seem to be running across. with bots, one of the great, I think one of a good proposal with bots, and actually, I don't know why Musk doesn't do this, but you just track eye movement on the app, and if there's no eyes looking at the phone, then then you determine that it's a bot. So that is one way. I mean, obviously,
eventually they'd simulate eye movements.
Yeah, exactly. But in the meantime, I mean, it's a bit of disruptive way to deal with bots. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, you could. I mean, certainly. The thing is one thing about having regulations and legislation about that sort of malicious use of software, which I think there definitely should be. But it's like, it's like zombie legislation, regulations. It's not effective if you can't enforce it. So that's a whole. To answer a lot of those questions is perhaps something to ask ChatGPT, because we're still fairly young in terms of human history and the internet and software and so forth. I mean, you got to consider that you guys have all been living in this era, but it's in terms of the boomers have never had to deal with these things, so they just don't know how. But a hell of a lot of ex-Geners and Zoomers don't know how either, because they never got taught from the boomers and so on. So all of these regulations concerning ethical use of software are things that we desperately do need, I think. And there's got to be some ways of enforcing them. And I think, the only, I think it can be done. The trouble is, I think, is the AI arms race, So, the public purpose programmers write some software that, helps enforce the regulations sort of automatically, right? AI enforcement of software and controls and that sort of thing. And then some other black hat hacker comes in and finds a way around those AI systems and tries to beat them. And so you get a sort of an arms race. But I'm all for that arms race rather than a nuclear arms race. Like, much rather have a sort of a software arms race than an actual hot war kind of arms race. So let the wars be in cyberspace. That's what I would say. But anyway, yeah. I mean, these are all actually very cool public policy problems that people could be working on. It's a really good sort of stuff to actually get into if you're interested in that. I know our chat's probably not so interested, but if you got friends or anyone, send them our way, and we'll give them some ideas. Oh yeah, got to mention in this conversation, re-mention, because I mentioned him before, is Cory Doctorow and the enshittification of the Twitters and everything. Enshittification. I think Instagram was being enshittified as well. And he was just saying, or Discord, exactly what you said, Douglas, that anytime they need to monetize and they're sort of their main product is their users, their social network is the product, and they don't have any idea how to do it without getting into that gross sort of selling personal data stuff to marketing companies, which definitely should be regulated. Then it gets enshittified. Enshittification is when just the service just becomes just not a nice experience, because whatever, all the ads or whatever way they just try to monetize it, it just ruins the whole experience. So anyway, so government monopolies are good for some things, right? Actually comes back to a question in the chat. Is someone asked, I think it was Charles was asking Josh, so you like monopolies? I'd always say, well, it depends. Because one part of having a freer economy, not a free market, but a freer economy where people are freer to do things that they want to do, that are not illegal. One of the aspects is to have monopolies, because they lower cost, they scale, and I don't care about any competition in those cases when you've got a decent company that has a sort of good product, and the only way they're going to be able to scale and lower their costs to consumers is by sort of increasingly monopolizing the market. And but it all depends, you see. It all depends on how, what they're doing, how good they are, and whether competition to, displace their product with a better product is still allowed. And so, there's all sorts of ways of handling that. It's like you can have startups and people with new ideas. You can have university and public funded research to improve stuff. And then the public has basically invested in the research and created really good products, but it doesn't have the purpose of selling them in the private market. And so it can be that all those things that have been generated from public research can be licensed to private companies to use. And why not? If there's a good monopoly that's lowering costs for everyone and producing a really good product, they can have the license, the public license, and use the new software that's been developed, and so the consumer is getting the benefit without paying the cost, of the for the profits for the private sector. So, all these things we talk about, free markets or socialism or worker cooperatives, I see them all as a sort of mix. You choose which sort of system works best for everyone, for the public, for the consumer. And that would be my answer to that. So whenever someone says, well, are you for monopolies? I'm like, well, yeah, sometimes, but not all the times. It's like, just,
I think one angle is there will always be monopolies.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but that's not the reason I like them. There'll always also be, a need to use the toilet every day.
Yeah.
Well, I could live without that, but whatever. So it's about fitting the purpose.
It's. I guess what I'm saying is there will always be monopolies. It just depends on where the monopoly is and what the monopoly is.
It's
doing.
Critical. It's all about purpose. Yeah. I'm certainly not in favor of. Well, certainly as an MMT, certainly don't. I understand the idea of a monopoly on law and the currency. And that should be publicly owned. It should be a democracy.
Exactly.
that type of monopoly. But do I want the government monopoly for producing tennis shoes or sports? No, I don't want that.
A couple of things just popped up here. Monarchy is actually ontologically true.
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means. Elaborate for me, cybernetics.
I would say in terms of like Spinoza's God, or the universe as a whole, as a conscious entity, or any other those kind of religions, then monarchy. I was going to say monogamy, monarchy word blend there. Sorry, bit of a slip. Yeah, I think monarchy is in a sense has some sort of naturalness about it.
I guess there's always sovereignty.
I do, however, debate with my daughter on this, who's a bit of a Satanist. She's like, well, no, it's just all random. And I'm like, so what? All the physics is just a Boltzmann brain fluctuation. But even then, a Boltzmann brain is a fluctuation from quantum mechanics, so it's still governed by quantum mechanics. So there's still some governor. There's always a governor, in a sense, and unless you're a complete like Satanist, by which I don't mean the devil. I mean a Satanist is like it's all random. Everything is just throw the dice. Everything. Okay.
See, I'm on the.
We've got some interesting dice rolling going on here.
I'm on the complete opposite of that. I would say everything is pure determined.
Determined by what? So you're a monarchist.
Yeah, it sounds like
not a Satanist.
Yeah, it sounds like it, right? It would be. I think we are just simply
Laplacian.
I think we are simply observing what has already been determined. There is no such thing other than the actual.
Oh, no, because you haven't read my full physics blog. This is a problem. You got to understand top-down causation and time. You know, if you think of physics as a Hamiltonian time evolution, like you step forward in time, boom, boom, boom. You know, I mean, up to relativity, right? So time, simultaneity is relative, but in terms of Cauchy hypersurfaces, you know, you can always develop like cones of any Cauchy hypersurface. And so the data on the hypersurface, which is, just think of it as some point in time in the past, and you develop everything from that by Hamiltonian, then that's deterministic. And a lot of people would say even in quantum mechanics it's deterministic. It's just you don't know the measurement outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what we call probability or whatever, whatever statistic language we use to describe what we don't understand. I'm sorry. What never actually came to fruition never had a chance anyway. I mean, it's just...
well, that's super determinism. That's slightly different. You see, quantum mechanics has not settled that debate yet.
Right? Correct. Yeah.
So it could be super deterministic, like you say. It's just the probabilities we just don't know them ahead of time. We can't compute them, which is a form of non-computability. So you got to be careful when you go down that road. But if you do a sort of a many worlds theory or something like that, then you got to deal with what the branching probabilities are, which is a tricky thing.
But even if there is many worlds, all of those worlds still live in the...
Well, many worlds is just complete nonsense.
But even if
there's no ontology for it.
Even if it isn't, even those worlds were all determined, right?
But determined by what?
Well, I don't know.
The hand of God.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
So you've always... Whenever you say super deterministic, you be very careful, because if you're saying, well, it's just determined by the laws of physics. So let's just say, for example, it's Schrodinger time evolution, or non-relativistic, whatever, or quantum field theory version of it, which is basically Schrodinger, but just with topology change for the interactions and so forth. Then you're really saying, well, it's because the laws of physics that just determine it, and the probabilities are determined, by some other sort of, hand of God or some process like that.
Yeah.
But in my theory, like the measurement setup is actually can influence the past, because if there's any non-trivial topology, and most physicists agree there should be, there's essentially time machines. So if any non-trivial topology in a space-time admits time machines, but we don't see non-trivial topology. It's all down at the Planck scale. I mean, if we could see it, we would be time travelers, which we aren't. So unless you're a clairvoyant or someone like that who's, I don't know, there's maybe some miracle exemptions and that sort of thing. But back to seriousness, it's like if you regard it like the whole universe, four-dimensional block universe, then the future already exists. So that's even more super deterministic than Hamiltonian time evolution. You're saying all of the measurement outcomes in the future have all sort of been determined, and we're just replaying the movie in our mind, and we're just having this experience.
Yeah.
But you see, that's a really cool kind of thing, because then I would sort of almost agree with you. It's just the question is like, yes, this is all determined by physical laws and the boundary conditions. And if you forget about the boundary or initial conditions, then you have nothing, because the physical laws don't have any causal effect. Right? A physical law is just a description of how things could work out if you know what the initial, past, and future boundary conditions. In quantum mechanics, you need them both.
Yeah,
you can't have anything happen with just past boundary conditions. You need to insert, whatever the measurement system is, and have it whatever collapse. But that is just the same as saying the future boundary conditions as well. And so all the probabilities are then determined by those two boundaries. So without knowing the boundaries, you don't know anything. You don't have causality. And so what creates the initial boundary conditions of our universe, or the
or the Penrose CCC, higher.
Where did it start?
Multiverse.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and so then you're back to monarchy. Well, there's got to be, some
higher power,
some high power, some God, something that we will never understand.
Yeah, but then all the but then all the the same the same problem then strikes with that God, right? Like
No, because it's not a physical thing.
Yeah, but
the problem exists if you have a physics, if you have a sort of a set of laws that you are saying determine everything.
But then there's some sort of super physics, right? And whatever that super physics is,
not necessarily.
But how do you? Yeah, but how would
it exists? It could exist outside of time, and So what you need to do to understand that God problem, whether there's an infinite regress of gods, is just to understand simple axioms of causality. And those the only way to do that sensibly without sort of going mad or insane is to not have time. So if you inject time, like if you have a notion of a past or a future, then I think you're always going to get infinite regresses. But interestingly, physicists sort of understand this. Hawking and Hartle, one of their proposals for the early universe problem, the low entropy universe, was to use what's called a Euclidean space-time that evolves sort of into a Lorentzian space-time. So the Euclidean space-time doesn't have time in the usual sense. It's four-dimensional, but there's no sort of notion of relativistic time. And so that's really interesting to me. It's like it's kind of a physicsy way of showing sort of the logic of what happens with causality if you don't have to worry about time. But I haven't written that stuff on my blog because getting into the questions about God and what God is and so forth, you have to be real careful because you're stepping a whole lot of culture, traditions, people's private beliefs, and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So what I do is I don't even talk about that sort of thing. All I do is I've got a thing that I could show you that just shows you the logic of causality, and it's just a formal system. So it's like if you want to believe it's possible to have a God that there's no infinite regress of gods, you can. And you just need a few axioms, and if you accept these axioms of causality, the logic follows.
Obviously, if you want something like that, you can declare it. Yeah.
You could just say, okay,
this is what I want. This is what I want, and these are the axioms that would allow this to be. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But the cool thing is that there is someone found that, so it's pretty cool. It's cool because the axioms of causality that are used are really nice, really good. So I like that.
Cybernetics, I want you to elaborate. I mean, you don't have to. You can do whatever the hell you want. But I'm curious for you to elaborate on hard determinism as a cult for lib moralists. Because I think I consider myself a hard determinist. It brings me joy. It brings me the joy and comfort I need.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah. I think the idea that we are just simply observers of an unfolding reality around us. Sam Harris would be proud. Yeah. Because Sam Harris speaks in my ear all the time, and he tells me to meditate. So it's exactly where I'm coming from, and it makes sense to me. It really does. I like that I am just an observer who gets to go along the ride of this universe. And it's always put it before, and it is freeing to me to not have free will.
Yeah, but you got to consider that you're possibly deluding yourself. Like goes to the
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Heisenberg blurs things a little bit.
Hold on 1 second though, guys. Just so everyone knows, if you've made it to hour 3, we go off the rails. Probably no more MMT talk will be had past this point. But just for those of you who are watching this after it's live too, or listening to this, we're not going to bring this back on the rails, but we love talking this stuff through. It's good. So
I just got one thing, because I often don't ever get to my scrapbook on my streams. Yeah. I got one thing, MMT, very quickly, is that you got to be careful. If you write a really good MMT tweet, Mosler will ratio you. He'll just give you a really good reply, and he'll get freaking more likes for his reply than you ever get for your original tweet that sparked the reply. So anyway, that was a thing that happens to me fairly.
Hold on 1 second. I gotta pull this up real quick.
This is the best highlight.
Well, I gotta at least share the screen here.
Oh, okay, sure.
There we go. Good tweet. Yeah. Good tweet.
Oh, was it? Thank you. Anyway, so I'm not saying this is my best tweet of the week, but it was kind of cool. Yeah. From the main, I do these from the XXX department sort of tweets sometimes, from the mainstream economic deadly warnings department. Governments can run deaf as still kingdom come. So there, I'm triggering the neoclassicals and Austrians, which means our grandkids at the end of the universe will have one whopping great bill to pay to So there, I'm conceding that the post-Keynesians could be right. There's a debt to pay. So let's hope they pay before the last Bitcoin tropic evaporates. So Warren is perfect. He rounded off really nice. Yeah, some poor kid at the Fed might have to debit that whopping securities account and credit the appropriate reserves account. He meant reserves. He just, someone else corrected him for that. Pray for him. That's so funny. That was a good one. So yeah, that's probably updated now, but I think Warren WB Mosler must have gotten quite a few likes for that, and I was about at 6 likes at the end of the day. Yeah, I give the joke, but Mosler did complete it kind of nicely.
Yeah. Followed
but
through.
part of the joke is that the payment of it is just crediting accounts with a computer. so I did add one bit at the end of that. It's like, yeah, but it's a real resource problem, because at the end of the universe, you're going to have a hard time gathering together a computer with all the electrons before they, evaporate into photons.
Yeah. Well, the good news is it'll start back up. It'll start over.
Go Penrose.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I really hope there's some life in that theory. That's gonna be kind of cool. We're talking about Penrose's conformal cycle cosmology here, which both Douglas and I quite like.
For different reasons.
Yeah.
Well, you actually understand it. I just watched it. I just watched a few.
Cybernetics consciousness, if you ask me, not that you should, is probably non-computable. So not even a hypercomputer. So it's like, you got to think about computers in terms of the theory, not the practice, right? But in the theory, in fact, in practice anyway, today, all our computers basically are Turing machines. But a general computer in a theory is a formal system. So you can also think about them mathematically, like Kurt Gödel would. And formal systems have, because of Gödel incompleteness, they have fundamental limits, right? So there are true statements that can never be comproved. So there are input-output things that can happen. Maybe in physics, we don't know, because we don't know if physics is computable or not. But there are input-output processes that can happen that cannot be simulated by any computer. That's the thing. So hypercomputers would just be able to do really cool things with real numbers, for example. So you'd be able to just do things with the number pi, for example, but all of the digits of pi. Imagine sort of if you needed them all, you could do that with sort of some types of hypercomputer, which is kind of cool. But if we're in the physical world, we don't really need that accuracy because of Heisenberg limits as well. So in terms of practical practical computers, it doesn't make much of an impact on whether artificial consciousness can be generated by a computer or not. But if you think consciousness, because of its subjective component, because of mental qualia, if you think that is not a formal system, then it can't be computable. But no one knows. You just speculate whether consciousness is formal or whether it's not, whether it's something ontological, metaphysical, spiritual. If you're on that side of things, then you could easily make the argument, oh yeah, so it's probably not computable. I say probably because I don't know. So probably computers aren't ever going to be consciousness. I'll just make a probability argument. It gets rid of all the debate with hardcore determinists like Douglas and so forth. Always got to make that qualifier. At least I do. I don't know. I can't. I can sometimes debate with a really hardcore AI nerd, and I won't make all those caveats just because you're just debating each other. You're not really advancing any knowledge,
solving anything. Oh man!
But I am interested in after the MMT project is over and we're all off, playing golf, or your e-games. Yeah. I am interested in trying to convert Douglas into being more spiritually minded.
I
get off the Sam Harris. Sam Harris is a terrible drug.
He knows that I used to be. So it would be a reconversion.
Right.
There you go. You've now got my thoughts. If you've made it this far into the live stream, you've got my thoughts on philosophy and where I come from. So, anyway, I think we've reached the bottom of the barrel for the night. we have
gone deep into philosophy.
Thoroughly gone off the rails.
There are some MMTers who do this. What is it called? I don't know what to call it. It's sort of like postmodernist type philosophy stuff, but that's not. It's not kind of my thing. But yeah, I'd actually be interested in looking into the outer reaches of MMT, the impact on philosophy, because I think there's an intersection there with moral philosophy. Doing the right thing for society.
Yeah.
Keynes as well. Someone called me a Keynesian here.
I saw that. I saw it up in the chat.
I'll tell you as a compliment. Yeah.
The substance.
If you just imagine Keynes, but he understood floating exchange rates. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be your. It's your thing right now on Twitter is what was it? Feynman.
Well, if Feynman was a socialist, anarcho something or other.
Yeah, if Feynman was a socialist, so instead, if it's Keynes, if he understood.
The floating exchange rates.
Yeah, if he understood fixed exchange rates. Yeah. I'm trying to read this. This substance that makes consciousness unique from everything else in this set can only enter from that higher set. So we can't build artificial consciousness since it lacks this tether.
I would go along with that cybernetics.
Okay.
Are you trolling me, by the way, or not? Because
I think he's
that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I'd go along with that.
Like, flesh that out for me.
One is it's a dark Cartesian. Rene Descartes. A little bit of a bias there that it's a substance, right? It doesn't have to be a substance. Physical substance. It doesn't have to be a physical substance. So what is a substance that is not physical? I have no idea. Right?
Okay.
That's just you're just saying a substance. You're just saying something that exists platonically in some sense, in like a mind space, whatever realm the mind operates in. It doesn't have to be space time, right? It could be some sort of, imagine an abstract realm of infinite dimensions where each point in that realm, infinite dimensional point, right, contains like a thought, a mental thought, whatever that is.
Okay.
So you call it the mind space or the mindscape. Rudy Rucker does this. So you say that's where the mind is. Now, what is this space? Does it exist? Is it real, or is it just the fact that we carry it with us in our heads somehow in terms of computational processes or non-computable processes, if you're a Penrose fan. Don't know any of that. So I wouldn't call it necessarily a substance. It's sort of like a process or something more platonic, but definitely active, because consciousness is active. It's not a our consciousness is a stream of thought, right? So it's not a platonic thing like a right angle triangle or the number pi, right? The number pi can't think because it's just static. So if you have all of that, then the idea here is, you see, it's like actually, I'm not sure about it now. I've talked myself out of it. It's unique. It's unique from everything else in the set. What set? What is he talking about? What set is Ibanez talking about? But anyway, supposing there is this set, consciousness is sort of unique because it can only enter from a higher set. So one way I would interpret that. Sorry, I have to interpret because I'm not quite sure. What you're about. But I'd say that if you imagine a set that's I'm having a hard time now grokking that. But I sort of get the spirit of the argument. I get the spirit of it. You can't build consciousness out of something like just blocks. Is one way I would put it. There has to be process, right? Because whatever else our conscious thoughts are, it's like a process. It's part of the time stream, if you like. But if you're a physicist, right, there's no such thing as time, right? Time is an illusion. It's just the fact that we experience things from moment to moment, but the whole universe as a whole, past and future, you can imagine, already exists. So all we're doing is like it's a movie that we're just happening to sit through to watch.
Yeah. Yep.
But we're active players in it. So it's not such a movie. We have a better metaphor, like it's an interactive e-game sort of thing. Except you don't realize that you've actually already played it.
Yeah.
You're just sort of, so to speak, living through it now. You're living through it as part of the game. You're embedded in the game.
Yep.
And so that's a lot. It's a lot like the idea that I had before, is that all of that thing cannot support consciousness because there's nothing causal in those laws that govern the system. You have to have some sort of starting point, some boundary conditions, and those, they're not going to be, if they're determined by laws, they're determined by other laws, metaphysical laws. They can't be physical laws, because otherwise you just keep asking, where's the boundary condition, initial conditions for those? So to escape from that, you have to do a sort of girdle move. You have to go one level up higher in the system. And so Cybernetic is right. You have to go one level up higher. The problem is, at some point, it has to be a non-formal system. So it has to be spiritual, because a formal system is always girdle incomplete. That's the whole point of Turing and Gödel. So if you keep it as a formal system where you can figure out the laws and make it deterministic in your theory, there's always going to be a higher system that you can always jump out of, because there'll always be valid questions or statements you can make about your system that are not provable, but yet do have an answer, right? So you keep on going, you keep on adding axioms and layers to get to a higher set that encompasses all the rest. But that does keep on going forever, right? There's no end to that. So you have to go non-formal systems to get out of that, which means non-formal systems just means you're just doing pure sort of, speculative metaphysics, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, religion, spirituality, whatever. Yep. Those things are not formal systems. Yeah, so that's the power of them, right? They can describe everything, but they're not exact descriptions because they're not formal systems. They're just poetic.
So your guess is as good as mine.
Exactly. Who had the best poetry? Well, I don't know. Ask Shakespeare.
Well, apparently ChatGPT.
Right.
So what you're saying is we found our maker.
Yeah. But everyone has their own poetry for it, right? That's the whole point of all those things.
Yeah.
It's just that once you start thinking your religion or your philosophy is the answer, because you formalized it. Well, you just complete. That's a Buddhist sort of move, or a Zen thing that you get punished for at the monastery. It's like, oh, you've just defeated yourself by formalizing it. So you get the bamboo cane over the head for that one.
Big Dog, welcome to the chat, man.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're almost at the end of this.
I know. I feel bad because I was just getting ready to cut in and say, I think we've hit that point. Which I think we might. I'm starting to get a little tired, so
starting to fade. Yeah, man.
It might be that time to wrap it up.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Another good week. I know Bijou and I are going to be ramping up some projects, so hopefully we'll have some fun projects to look over soon. Go over soon and kind of show off and keep in touch. Subscribe, all that good sort of stuff. Like, whatnot. Those are my plugs.
I got through without burping as well.
Yeah. It's funny. You're like eating breakfast and lunch right beforehand. Yeah. I'm ready to go to bed. But yeah. Another good live stream. Bijou, do you want to send us out, or just to close, do a hard close tonight?
Yeah. I just do a quick one. So yeah, amazing AMI accounting. Douglas, will Michael Hudson be able to overcome his printing money Tourette's syndrome, or will he fail, thereby turning Ben Norton into a flaming gold pile of leftist stinking slag? Heaven help us. Help the people of Gotham from their money printing. Douglas, we need you. That's all.
Right
Same
on.
time, tune in to find out whether the money printing gig's going next week. Same MMT time, same MMT channel. Bye all.
Have a good one, everybody.